Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Cabinet meeting of Warrington Borough Council on the 14th of September 2020. I'm the leader of the Council, Councillor Russ Bowden, and participating in the meeting tonight are my Cabinet colleagues, Councillor Cathy Mitchell, Councillor Judith Guthrie, Councillor Tony Higgins, Councillor Rebecca Knowles, Councillor Maureen McLaughlin, Councillor Hans Mundry, Councillor Hitesh Patel, Councillor Matt Smith. We're also joined by senior officers of the Council, Stephen Broomhead, the Chief Executive, and also participating are Matthew Cumberbatch, Linton Green, Gareth Hopkins and David Boyer. I'm hoping that we've now got our new Director of Public Health, Tara Raj, on the call, and also Councillor Maureen McLaughlin is here. I think that Cabinet members, colleagues, will obviously have been looking at the news in recent days concerning the increase in COVID-19 cases here in Warrington. Before the meeting starts, I thought it'd be helpful for us to have an update from Dr. Tara Raj, the Council's Director of Public Health, concerning the current situation in Warrington. So before I start the formal meeting of Cabinet, is it the will of the meeting that we receive that short update?
It is. Yeah.
It is, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I've probably introduced it already. Obviously, in recent days, we've seen a significant increase in the 7-day case rate here in Warrington. And obviously that's of concern to us and also for our partners across the town. So if Dr. Tara Raj has joined us now, can I ask Tara, please, to introduce herself and give us a brief update on the current position?
Can you hear me, everyone?
I can, thank you.
Yeah, super. Okay, you've added a lovely title that I don't have, but thank you, Russ, I appreciate that. I'm Tara Raj, I'm Director of Public Health in Warrington, and I started at the beginning of August. When I started, cases and situation was quite low in terms of COVID. What I wanted to alert you about was over the period of the last few weeks, it's gone up and down, and unfortunately now it's just going up and up and up. We're on that sort of escalation that other areas, for example, Bolton has seen. We're probably not that far off from Bolton at the moment. So our current situation, and I can't give you, and we have unvalidated data that I think has been shared with the press, but currently, I know that's in the public domain, we have an incidence rate of about 88.3 per 100,000 over a 7-day period. Now, at the end of today, when it's released by government, you'll see that that data has already gone up considerably. So that's not good news for Warrington. I don't want to panic people. But this is, we're also seeing a pattern of spread across all of our wards. So 21 of our 22 wards in Warrington have exceeded the 40 per 100,000 threshold. That's where you have to start worrying quite seriously. Exceeded 30 per 100,000 as a threshold. One ward hasn't. That's just for you to know that the spread is quite wide. It seems to be that the more deprived wards have the higher concentrations and higher rates. But you know this stuff. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I'm happy to take more questions about that if you need me to. As a proactive gesture, I contacted the Joint Biosecurity Centre on Friday because I could see that the cases were going up, and they weren't coming down. So we'd arranged a meeting with them, and we met with them. Stephen Broomhead and I met with them at lunchtime today in order to discuss some of the potential and what we're doing and what our potential escalations might be. What you probably need to know is that there is going to be a gold meeting of the Secretary of State tomorrow about the situation in the north of England, and that includes Warrington, but it's not just Warrington. So we're hoping that some of the measures that they may consider will take account of the fantastic local work that we've been doing. And Stephen Broomhead and Councillor Russ Bowden and others are very supportive of the local approaches. I think you would say that, Russ, that we've introduced. So some of the things that we've talked about is that we will up the ante in terms of our local interventions. So we've been putting out quite a few communications messages. We have quite a comprehensive action plan that includes how we're going to work with education settings, care home settings, and with how we're supporting the more vulnerable who are potentially in that shielded category, and also how we're going to target support at other vulnerable people, for example, homeless. So we're upping our ante with all of that. The thing that we I've been discussing with Councillor McLaughlin Roy just before the call is our messaging that we're about to put out. We've actually just released it, and it's to say that we would prefer people, we actually would like people not to invite anyone into their household or private garden that isn't part of your bubble. Now, that isn't national guidance. That has been introduced in other local lockdown areas, but I, as Director of Public Health, think that that will be a helpful suggestion, and I have the endorsement of the political leadership on that. It's quite confusing as to what guidance you should follow and what you shouldn't. I'm hoping that the asking people not to mix in your own household will help reduce the spread. Now, it's we're going to review after 3 weeks. We're going to review on the 5th of October to see if that has helped or not. We may have the decision taken away by national players, but it's never going to be taken away with Stephen and Russ in the game. It's always going to be based on local input and decisions. So that's the new thing. People have been kind of trying to understand what the connection is between pubs, restaurants. Why can you go to a pub and why can you go to a restaurant and not have somebody in your own household? Are we driving people to pubs as opposed to staying in their household? My argument and our argument is that actually people are more likely to pick it up in a pub because they're mixing with other households. They've got to maintain their social distancing, but once you come into your own household, unfortunately, you're likely, if you have picked anything up, you're more likely to spread once you're in that own household. So that's why we're trying to limit it. I'm going to stop there. Is that okay?
Tara, I think that was ideal. Thank you. I think before I just check with cabinet members if they've got any questions, I'll perhaps invite Councillor Maureen McLaughlin if she's got anything to add to Tara's statement tonight.
Nothing specific to add that Tara hasn't already covered. Just to say that we are taking these measures to be proactive. We need to be on top of this virus as much as we possibly can. And it's a request from us, please, for people not to be mixing in their households, not to be going into other people's households or other people's gardens. If you do want to meet in a public space, socially distanced, that's the best way of doing things to prevent the virus being brought back into people's households.
Okay, thank you. I think that was a very clear statement from you there, Councillor McLaughlin. Colleagues, I don't know if anybody's got any questions. Perhaps if I go through the order alphabetically, and obviously if you've got a question for either Tara or for Councillor McLaughlin, then please raise it. Councillor Guthrie. Councillor Higgins.
No, thank you.
Councillor Knowles.
No, thank you.
Councillor Mitchell.
No, thank you.
Councillor Mundry.
No, thank you.
Councillor Patel. Councillor Smith.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a really important update, and hopefully those people that are watching our broadcast tonight will obviously pick up those messages, and we need to spread that advice far and wide. Sorry, do you want to come back, Councillor Patel?
I was struggling trying to toggle my microphone off. I did have a question, if that was okay.
Absolutely.
And it's a question for Tara, really. Hello, Tara. So when lockdown happened, there's a lot of confusion about who is vulnerable and who's not vulnerable and who's high risk, etc. And I think as time has gone on, people have forgotten or maybe been a little bit more complacent about their family members who might be vulnerable. And I think the suggestions about not mixing as much is really clear, a really clear message. A lot of my constituents have a particular vulnerability, be it diabetes or cancer or whatever, and the schools have now opened, and some of the questions that are being put back to us is, what are the risks of children picking up COVID but then passing it on to their vulnerable family members?
It's it's on everyone's minds, isn't it? There's Public Health England have published a suite of studies. They've got it's helpfully called the SKID, S-K-I-D study. They've been monitoring the situation in schools. A lot of it is based on the summer period where there weren't as many children around. However, it's a prospective study, so as more data comes out, it will be shared. Early indications seem to suggest that transmission is not exactly high, not low. It happens, but it's less. My reading of it, of the studies, is it's less likely than in the household, the transmission. So fingers crossed. I think it is a fingers crossed that we can keep our schools open and that they will be, as safe as possible. I've been speaking to head teachers who've been grappling with this, for the last couple of weeks, trying to, get their head around this. They are introducing amazing social distancing measures, and whenever there's a case, they will send a bubble home, and that's happened on a couple of occasions, on more than a couple of occasions. So I would say our schools are acting very, very helpfully at this time. We will review the situation. The likelihood of spread in the household is hopefully going to be sort of limited. But I think with the reduction in household mixing that we're trying to promote, that will help to keep more vulnerable people safer, because you're not bringing your friends home.
Okay, thank you. Is that okay, Hitesh?
Yes, thank you.
Okay then. Well, thank you for everyone for your contributions to that part. I think that was a really important update, and obviously clear messaging for the people of Warrington as we move forward in the coming weeks. We'll now move onto the formal part of the agenda. A reminder to everybody that the part 1 meeting is obviously publicly accessible and has been broadcast via the council's website. And obviously this meeting is being held remotely under coronavirus legislation. When we get to part 2 confidential part of the meeting, that won't be open to the public and press, and our public broadcast will cease at that point. Obviously confirm that everybody's had the agenda and the various reports that support it and have those in front of them. There is a update for the forward plan and also a slight amendment to the recommendations associated with agenda item 9, but we'll cover those at the point when we reach them. So in terms of proceeding, I don't think we've had any apologies today. All members are present. The first item on the agenda is the code of conduct, and obviously a reminder to all members to declare any interest that they have in any item no later than when that item is discussed tonight. Moving on to item 2 is the minutes of the previous meeting. Are we happy to accept those as a true record?
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item 3 then, Cabinet decisions and forward plan. Obviously, members have sight of that in their agenda pack. You should also have now had an update to the forward plan, which lists some new items for consideration at our next meeting in October, as well as some updates for that meeting where items have needed to be deferred. Moving on to our first business of tonight then, item 4, capital programme 2019-20. Outturn, please. Report of Councillor Cathy Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update Cabinet on the 1920 outturn position for the Council's capital programme, to seek approval for new schemes and to be added, and to provide updates on major schemes. So by background, the original capital budget for 1920 was approved in February 2019 by full council at £404 million. During the year, the budget was revised upwards at Q3 to nearly £520 million, and that was done by Cabinet in March 2020. During Q4, there was advice from the Council's Treasury advisors, Link Asset Services, and a technical accounting reclassification took place, which meant that the capital budget was estimated at that point to be £359 million, which is lower than at the Q3 agreed budget, and that's because of the technical change. A number of improvements have been made to the financial and project monitoring systems which surround the capital program, and that's shown that there's been no significant overspend, which is really important. The close scrutiny, which is by an officer group called the Capital Investment Planning Group, has ensured that issues have been addressed early and no unexpected issues have arisen, so it's much more proactive than it was previously. At paragraph 3.4 in the report, you'll see capital expenditure on various projects. And just looking at things like refuse collection, vehicle replacements, street lighting, solar farm projects and Together Energy shows the direction of travel in favour of green projects, because when the council called a climate emergency, it meant it, and we are moving forward in that way. So carrying on in the report, at 4.1, you can see the variation from the budgeted amount in the report, and it was a £141 million underspend across the year. The key reason for that really was an underspend on the Invest to Save programme, and that's really difficult for officers to forecast with any great accuracy, because that programme encompasses sort of targeted expenditure to generate a saving in terms of the provision of services, or it's something that will generate additional revenue to the council, which helps to pay for services instead of just constantly making cuts. At paragraph 5, you'll see a table which summarises the funding of the capital programme, with the different sources. It's a fully funded programme. And then at paragraph 6, you've got major scheme updates, and I'll just highlight a few of those. There's Times Square, which is now complete. Leases have been arranged with Gravity for the former market building, and that's currently being fitted out and expected to open in late autumn. We've also got heads of terms with another operator for 1 Dolmans Lane, and we're also in early negotiations with 2 further occupiers for Times Square. So things are still moving on despite COVID. And there's also effective transition taking place between the 2 council offices, and new ways of working are progressing well, so that's positive. There's also the solar farms. The council took ownership of the York farm in December 2019. We've had really good weather, and that's meant that the generation from that farm is ahead of expectations. The Hull solar farm will supply the council with green electricity from April 2021, and that's due for completion in autumn this year. The completion of that project is 6 months behind schedule. That was due to bad weather in the first quarter, and then of course COVID hit us. Then there's the housing company. The first 2 housing schemes at Sycamore Lane and Chatfield Drive, that's 161 houses and apartments powered by green energy again were approved by our planning committee on the 8th of July this year. The schemes are now fully designed and intended to start this month, with the first properties being handed over in April next year, and the completion date for both the schemes is estimated to be May 2022. The first two housing schemes have attracted a grant from Homes England of £2.2 million. The housing company is also exploring the potential to develop a further 460 properties on 4 further brownfield sites in the borough, and is expected that will be presented to Cabinet early next year. There's also Together Energy. We've got a 50% share in that company. We're growing the customer base in that company, and obviously the aim of that really is to reduce fuel poverty in Warrington. That's a key aim of us purchasing that company, and also to provide 100% green energy, again in line with the council's emergency climate resolution and green energy policy. So that's all I really want to say about the report. I'll move to the paragraph 13, which is the recommendation to note the report and endorse the schemes, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Mitchell. Obviously on a live broadcast we can't use the raising your hand option on Microsoft Teams, so what I propose to do is go through our members alphabetically and then give you the opportunity to ask any questions. So we'll start off with Councillor Guthrie.
Just to comment, really, it's really great that we are linking projects to our green agenda, because obviously we had the climate change emergency declared last year in June, and it's important that we keep up the momentum, linking all that we do to the green sort of agenda. And it's also obvious that we're looking more to renewable energy for the future, and that can only benefit the borough in terms of fuel poverty and also the way we supply energy. So it's really good from that point of view. So thanks, Cathy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Higgins?
No, thank you.
Councillor Knowles?
No, thank you.
Councillor McLaughlin?
I just wanted to say how pleased I am that the housing companies are actually going to be starting building soon. It's been a great ambition of ours to start building housing for the need that is in the borough, and we're going to start seeing that happening very soon. I'll be really pleased to see some bricks on the ground.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mundry?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just looking at the on page 22, I think it's making note of how we're investing in the things that matter to people in Warrington. I think look at the cenotaph on the cenotaph one, and the Warrington or the state amongst others in there, and the park open spaces. I think there's a lot of things that are important to the citizens of Warrington and people of Warrington, and that this council is actually taking the time to invest in things that matter to people. Thank you.
Thank you. Good positive comment. Thank you. Councillor Patel?
I'm okay. No comment. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Smith?
No, nothing from me. Thank you.
Okay. No real comments from me. I think just in terms of the recommendations, Councillor Mitchell, we obviously need to cover that the inclusion of the new scheme since the last Q3 report, and just note that from section 7 in the recommendations. Okay, colleagues. The paper's been presented by Councillor Mitchell. We've got a seconder for the report.
I'll second it.
Okay, that's Councillor Guthrie. Okay, then move to the vote. Obviously, again, with this being a virtual meeting, I have to take everybody in turn. So if you can signal if you're for, against or abstaining. So Councillor Bowden, for. Councillor Guthrie?
For.
Councillor Higgins?
For.
Councillor Knowles?
For.
Councillor McLaughlin?
For.
Councillor Mitchell?
For.
Councillor Mundry?
For.
Councillor Patel?
For.
And Councillor Smith?
For.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. That's unanimous. Moving on then to item 5, which is the Q1 monitoring report for the capital programme for the 2020/21 year. Councillor Mitchell again, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is looking at Q1 of the current year, the capital investment programme. A summary of the monitoring position is given at Appendix 1, and you can see from the table, which is at paragraph 3.1, that there's a huge underspend at the first quarter. The budget for Q1 was nearly 370 million pounds, and it's actually just over 14 million. And the headline really here is it's COVID across the board. You know, that's the cause of that. We've not been able to invest in the projects at the rate that we've wanted to. So in setting that budget, there was also an ambitious set of schemes, including investor save schemes, but things that have changed because of COVID. At paragraph 3.5, it refers to Appendix 2. You'll see all the Section 106 projects. That's the money that is paid by developers to enhance whatever area around the project needs to be enhanced to make the project happen. Those monies have to be spent within the correct time frame, otherwise they have to be returned with interest. So it's important to keep a check on those. Other variances, I'll just pick out a couple at directorate level, such as corporate services, the Warrington 2020 transformation programme, again impacted by the COVID pandemic. And this was trying to sort of streamline tasks within the council, trying to make things, trying to save money really by doing things in a more streamlined way. And also, there was also the environment, the Western Link, a detailed design partner has now been appointed. There'll be a planning application that is currently programmed for May next year. But obviously scheme funding and progression is subject to a full business case, and that will be scrutinised by the Department for Transport. In terms of the growth directorate, there's Great Sankey Hub. That is now complete and that's within budget. Busey and Dalham Hub is on site, that's nearing completion, that's imminent for completion, and that is within budget. That project's experienced delay due to COVID, but the contractor has kept steady progress going throughout. Times Square is now complete. I've already mentioned that. The York Solar Farm and Hull Solar Farm. And then you've got Cirencester, which is one that the council have been looking at really for a couple of years now. But the technology has changed in that time and made that a viable solar farm site. So that is now, the project was put on hold, but because of that, there's been a 20 megawatt battery put on the site, so there's battery storage on it, and the council will be development funding that project in association with Abundance Finance, which gives residents of Warrington the chance to invest in green energy for the town. And the project's expected to begin in September with a May 2021 completion date. Birchwood Park is another one where the council continues to invest in the site and was looking at, and has been converting what was a car park on the site into another unit, and with a view to that, plus a new multi-storey car park. Now the unit's being developed and presently looking, to put that into a lease. But because of COVID, the number of people parking at the site has dropped. So there isn't an immediate need for the multi-storey car park, and that is, that is being reviewed in the light of changing habits with COVID. So the medium-term financial plan capital budget was agreed in February this year at nearly £957 million. The capital expenditure is currently estimated at nearly £370 million, which is an awful lot lower than we agreed in February. And you can see the changes in the table. That's detailed in Appendix 3, but it's summarised in the table at paragraph 3.7. So COVID will have an impact on the delivery of this year's capital programme, and the impact differs and it varies on a scheme by scheme basis, such as slippage of months on the Hull Solar Farm and the housing company because people couldn't work on the site, and also the financial return on Timescale Square will reduce. It won't be as much because places have had to close. just because of lockdown. There are currently 224 schemes in the capital programme, and they're broken down into schemes that are already complete, those that are on site or underway, those that are programmed in year, and those that aren't programmed, and they are itemised in Appendix 4, and certainly the schemes not programmed are in Appendix 4. So there are also changes in the programme, and the reasons for the decrease in budget across directorates is summarised at Appendix 3 in the report. So this is a fully funded capital programme which is summarised in the table at 8.1, and you can see the revised amount at the revised budget because of COVID. Paragraph 9, you've got the capital receipts forecast. The capital receipts are an important element of the financing of our capital programme. Contrary to popular belief, you can't use, when you sell an item, you can't use capital to add to the revenue budget. So when people say you should sell whatever to add to the revenue budget, you can't do that because it's capital, it's not revenue, and it's not, you know, you can't do that with accounting rules. The Capital Investment Planning Group, which I referred to earlier, has received several bids for new schemes to be added to the 2021 to 2023 programme. Appendix 6 provides a summary of the projects, which total 1.366 million that will be recommended to Cabinet for insertion in the 2021 capital programme. I also want to mention the foster carer loan scheme. So during the past 18 months, a small number of foster carer loans have been given by the council to families, or for the houses of families who are foster carers for us. They've been in the region of about £80,000 per loan and have gone towards extension to foster carers' homes to enable them to foster more children and reduce the need for residential care. So this is a scheme that makes outcomes for our children better, as well as helping the council. It's now proposed to set up a former foster care loan system funded with borrowing, and the total scheme will be capped at £2 million and will fund in the region of 25 loans. All of these loans will be secured on the property and borrowing costs will be met by the foster carer. Appendix 7 shows a summary of all feasibility projects. The thing to note with those is that's checking out whether something's viable as a project, and if it doesn't go ahead, that could end up being a revenue cost to us, so it's something that you need to watch. So you'll see the recommendation set out at paragraph 19 in the report, and I'll move that recommendation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor. Thank you for that, Councillor Mitchell. I think we'll go through members in turn again, see if members have got any questions. So I'll start off with Councillor Guthrie.
No comment. Thank you.
Councillor Higgins.
No comment. Thank you.
Councillor Knowles.
Not from me.
Councillor McLaughlin.
No comment from me, thank you.
Councillor Mundry.
No comments from me.
Councillor Patel.
Just a quick comment from me, if I may, Chair. I'm reminded of Northamptonshire Council that was due to go bankrupt. That council is run by the Conservatives, and the rules around putting your profits from any capital sales into your revenue benefit was suddenly waived by central government for their local authority. And yet the rest of us are having to abide by very, very strict financial controls, which are actually putting services at risk. And I wonder if that message could be passed on to our local MPs. And I appreciate one of them is a Conservative, and whether they can actually make sure Warrington gets, you know, not just a fair deal, but actually Warrington is treated equally compared to Conservative councils.
Thank you. Good comment. Good observation. I'm sure we could take that up outside of this meeting, Councillor Patel, and see if we can get any movement on that. Councillor Smith, any comments from you?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think in terms of my comment, obviously, welcome the progress on the capital schemes continuing throughout this year. So that's good work, and well done to officers and everyone involved with those. I think the significant part for me is obviously about reappraising the budget for this year, and not just sticking blindly to the plan that we had from the budget, but recognising the impact of COVID and ensuring that our capital programme is sized to that which we can deliver, and obviously that has benefits in terms of the financial impact, minimum revenue provision, for example. So obviously that's entirely appropriate and ensures that we're not overcommitting resources to projects that aren't actually going to progress this year. So I think that's obviously a sensible and prudent approach. I don't have any further comments. Have we got a seconder for the report?
I'm happy to second.
Okay, it's been seconded by Councillor Knowles. Take members in turn again then to indicate your support or otherwise for this report. Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie,
4.
Councillor Higgins,
4.
Councillor Knowles,
4.
Councillor McLaughlin,
4.
Councillor Mitchell,
4.
Councillor Mundry,
4.
Councillor Patel,
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. That's unanimous. Moving on then to item 6. It's the budget monitoring Q1 report for the 2020-2021 financial year. Councillor Mitchell again, please.
Thank you, Chair. So here we're taking a look at the budget that we approved in February this year. It's the revenue budget. We approved a budget of just shy of £140 million back in February. It seems a long time ago. And that included savings targets of £14.1 million. So even at that point where we've been underfunded for 10 years, it's not a recent thing. The funded pressures were £21.1 million. So we were going to try and make £40 million worth of savings and generate from our income and our investments a further £7 million. So at the end of Q1, the forecast is an overspend of £29.9 million. That position arises largely from measures required in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. At this point last year, the forecast overspend was about £6 million. So that's the difference. We've got to be able to achieve a balanced budget, and that's really difficult with the current levels of funding that's available from the government. And because of COVID-19, the council is getting significant extra demand for services already, which are proving challenging to manage and will need additional government funding to sustain. So what we've seen is really a hit on the fees and charges that we normally have, which are our income. We've seen that over the years the council have cut our funding, but all the time demand for services is rising, and it just went up a huge amount with COVID. And at the start of COVID, the government asked local authorities to step up, which they did. Local authorities all across the country have been in the front line in the fight against COVID and looking after residents. The government said, don't worry about funding, you'll get whatever it takes. Well, a couple of payments have been made, but they are nowhere near enough. And it's estimated that it's about £10 billion shortfall across the country for councils who were promised whatever it takes for funding in terms of COVID. The council stepped up and did their part of it, and it's time for the government to do theirs. So you can see by department in table 1 in the report, the overspend. And what table 2 shows you is that what we agreed in February was to try to get just over £40 million worth of savings. But because of COVID, we're not going to be able to achieve those savings. So this is another hit to us. About nearly £11 million of those savings is not now going to be achievable because of COVID. Looking at by directorate at paragraph 6 in the report, again, families and well-being is really one that has been really engaged in COVID and helping people in that directorate. So they are forecasting an overspend of 9.4 million at Q1. All sections of that directorate have had additional costs and lost income as a result of COVID. So adult social care is forecasting an overspend of £5.2 million, and that's really about the additional cost of COVID. Children's services is forecasting an overspend of £3.2 million, predominantly within the children in care and children in need division. So these are the most vulnerable people who need the help of the council. So where do you, if you're going to have to cut these budgets, where are you going to do it? So really, I'm going to turn now to the reserves position. The council's got a robust reserves position. Some reserves are earmarked, so you can't use everything for everything. Some can only be used for a specific purpose. And we're required to keep a reserve of between 3 and 5% of our annual budget. And we do have reserves which could be used to meet this overspend. But the trouble with that is you can only do it once and then it leaves you vulnerable. And in turbulent times like these, do you really want to be without reserves? Do you want to clear that out? You don't. This is why government needs to step up. Just look, I mentioned earlier that at this time last year it was a £6 million overspend, but at the end of the year it turned out to be about £300,000, because at Q1, which is where we're at, it's really a very prudent forecast, and it's because you can't be really certain about what's going to happen in the 12 months ahead. So a pragmatic approach is taken, which is reporting a worst case scenario. I'll move then, the recommendations are at paragraph 13 in the report, and I'll move that recommendation and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, colleagues, and obviously some quite stark messages from Councillor Mitchell there in relation to the council's financial position, and I don't think we should get tired of reiterating the point, really. Robert Jenrick and the Chancellor and other senior secretaries of state, including the Prime Minister, said that we had to get on with doing this work. Councillors were absolutely at the front line of dealing with COVID, and we were told just to get on and the money will follow, and clearly that just hasn't happened. And in fact, even of the money that we have received, a significant part of that just flowed through the council. It was, for example, to provide business support grants to local businesses, really important for our local economy and protecting jobs here in Warrington, but it wasn't actually direct funding for services that the council needed to provide. And I think we shouldn't tire, and we shouldn't be embarrassed of continuing to press our case for proper funding to deal with the financial impact of COVID here in Warrington. I'll move on to Councillor Guthrie then, see if she's got any comments or questions.
Just a quick comment, Chair. I think we've seen lots of changes to people's habits during the COVID epidemic. We've seen a rise in waste. I mean, residents are actually sort of using our CRCs far more than they ever did before. And it's surprising that some of our residents have not been using the correct method of disposing their waste. So we've had an exponential rise in terms of people who are fly tipping, and all these costs have to be taken on by the council, and that's seen a rise in our charges, due to all the excess waste. So COVID has been responsible for a lot of increase, in our expenditure. So hopefully the government will be able to step up and give us more money in the short term. Thank you.
Thank you. Good comments there. Councillor Higgins?
No, thank you.
Councillor Knowles?
Just a couple of things from me, if I may. I think you don't really need many powers of imagination to appreciate why adults and children's social care have really had to step up, and why That's been a hugely expensive enterprise. And I think we're in for some more, given the way things seem to be going. There are going to be a lot more demands on the local authority to step up and make sure that people who are exceedingly vulnerable do get the support that they need when they need it. One thing that really occurs to me is, we are very careful stewards of the public money that comes our way, and we have to generate a balanced budget. That's really, really vital. But if you think about the council tax, obviously comes into the council's budget, but in terms of our business rates, which I think are around about £110 million, we only really get to keep just over a quarter of those. And I really wish that central government was as prudent in the way it's spending some of the money in this COVID crisis as we are, because we've had money spent on things that just haven't materialised. Sort of PPE that wasn't fit for purpose, and all sorts of other enterprises that haven't really borne fruit. So just really a plea there to, on a national level, I think that clearly we're in a period where there's an awful lot of public spending going on, but it needs to be spent on the right things for the right people at the right time.
Thank you. Absolutely excellent comments. And when I look at the way the government has behaved, I think you're absolutely right, Councillor Knowles. You look at ferry contracts awarded to companies, for example, that didn't have any ferries. In the COVID crisis, we've seen PPE contracts awarded to companies that don't make PPE. And basically, if you run a company where you've got an advisor or friend who is somewhere close to the Conservative Party, you seem to get a contract awarded without any questions being asked. I think it would be nice to think that at a national level we had good stewardship of public money as we see it at a local level. Absolutely. Moving on then, Councillor McLaughlin.
No comment from me, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Mundry.
Well, yes, I think just a quick comment, Russ, is I think when the crisis hit us, I think Warrington was asked to stand up and actually play its part, and I think Warrington Council's done that, and we've done our best for Warrington citizens. But now, as the finances comes to a crunch time, it's time the government stand up and stand by its word as well. Because Warrington Council's done its bit for the citizens of Warrington. It's about time the government start doing their bit now.
Absolutely agreed. Councillor Patel.
No comment.
Councillor Smith.
No, thank you.
Okay then, colleagues. Have we got a seconder for this report?
I'll second.
Sorry, was that Councillor Patel, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. If we can move to the vote then. Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie.
4.
Councillor Higgins.
4.
Councillor Knowles.
4.
Councillor McLaughlin.
4.
Councillor Mitchell.
4.
Councillor Mundry.
4.
Councillor Patel.
4.
And Councillor Smith.
4.
Thank you, colleagues. That's unanimous. And moving on then to item 7. This is the annual risk and insurance report for the 2019-20 year, and it's Councillor Mitchell again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the risk report. The risk and insurance service in the council makes sure that appropriate risk management arrangements and insurance cover is in place for the council. It's got various roles as an employer, an owner, an occupier of property, a highways authority, and a provider of public services. The risk of a pandemic, going back to COVID again, was formally recognised as a strategic risk by the council during 2016-17. So a significant amount of work had been undertaken to prepare for pandemic flu, and that work was adapted to respond to the current pandemic. So although COVID-19 is unprecedented, there was a great value in the preparatory work that the council did, which came out in a really swift response when COVID hit us. Internal preparations to respond to the pandemic began in January this year, taking public health advice on the situation as it developed across the world. The council mobilised and responded rapidly, forming an internal COVID response group which met weekly, and it also participated in weekly and twice weekly strategy coordinating group meetings across Cheshire. Work was undertaken also with minimum interruption in mid-March to increase home working in the council from about 200 a day to at least 1,500 home workers. So at the time of writing, which was July of this report, the UK is continuing to respond to the pandemic, but national restrictions have begun to ease. And we heard from Tara earlier on, this is not over. This is a very clear and present problem, which is growing again. Also, risk to the council's financial stability is recognised in the strategic risk register at number 18, and that continues to be assessed. The Cabinet's aware of financial challenges facing the council in response to COVID-19, which we've just talked about, and the potential impact on service delivery of that challenge. In terms of strategic risk management, the risk register provides an overview of the most important risks facing the council. The council adopts a consistent approach to the assessment of risk, and it takes into account the potential impact of each risk and the likelihood that that risk will materialise, and you'll see in figure 1 that's set out. So the strategic risk register for quarter 4 1920 is provided at appendix 1 to this report. The most highly rated risks for 2019-20 are summarised in figure 3 of the report. I'll just touch on a few of those. The risks associated with monitoring and governance of the council's strategic investment portfolio were escalated to the risk register during 1920. So that arrangements for the portfolio that we've got have been strengthened. We rely heavily on external expertise to make sure that we've got the right people advising us. The importance of commercial activity to the council's financial position shouldn't be underestimated. You know, about £20 million a year net onto our budget from our activities in this way. But we need to ensure that if arrangements are effective and have full strategic oversight. So we've commissioned PwC to undertake an independent review of commercial governance arrangements, which should provide assurance and assist in identifying further opportunities for improvement. The risk rating to tackling health inequalities at number 7 in the register has been redefined into different areas, because when you look at what impacts on poor health outcomes, there's different departments involved in that, and they are set out in 4.11. Risks relating to safeguarding and adverse inspections have been de-escalated to directorate level. So although the risk could be significant, there are strong and effective risk management arrangements in place which lessen the need for strategic oversight at this time. At figure 4 in the report, you'll see a comparison between the risk register that we had in 2018-19 and the one in 2019-20. And the one that really stands out is number 9, which is the pandemic, and that's the one that's gone right up this year. So I'm going to turn now to insurance activity. The council contracts with Salford City Council to manage our insurance and compensation claims up to a value of £25,000. Claims with an estimated cost of more than £25,000 are managed directly by the insurers. So insurance claims activity for the period April 2019 to March 2020 is summarised in figure 5. And that just shows really that should the council be found liable for the totality of the outstanding caseload, insurers would meet the cost for the excess, currently estimated at £1.5 million, and the balance of 2.6 million would fall to the council, and that's all well provided for within the council's insurance fund. As shown by figure 6 in the report, the number of new claims that were reported in 2019-20 was slightly higher than the levels reported for the previous 3 years, but not significantly so, and remain much lower than the levels we experienced prior to 2015-16. The council has a proactive approach to risk management, which monitors claim activity and looks at any developing trends and areas of concern so that the various directorates can consider that and take action if something's emerging from that. The council has a significant investment in highways maintenance and effective policies and practice for highway inspections and complaints. There's also a robust approach to the investigation and management of claims, especially where fraud is suspected. There have also been external law reforms which mean that low value personal injury claims are less attractive to claims management companies and solicitors, and that too has had an impact. So you can see at figure 7, the case load is still dominated by highways related public liability claims. You can see in figure 7 there's also a sharp increase in the value of non-highways public liability claims, and they tend to be of a higher value and more complex claims, such as allegations of breaches of human rights and that sort of thing. To date, the council hasn't made any significant settlements in that regard, but that's expressed in figure 7. So financial considerations, you've always got to look at high-level financial implications of particular risks to the council, such as breach of information governance or health and safety requirements, which could result in the council being fined by the Information Commission's Office or Health and Safety Executive. And the council maintains provisions of reserves to meet future excess costs of insurance claims, and that's set out in paragraph 6.2. In recent years, the council has accepted higher excess levels on its employers' liability, public liability and motor policies, and that's given us reductions in the premium costs and given us a saving. We continue to adopt a robust approach to the investigation of spurious and suspect claims, and Salford's expertise has been particularly useful in that regard, because of the 294 claims that were closed in 1920, 230 were closed without settlement or cost, and there's a notional saving there of just less than £1 million, and 12 public liability claims were specifically investigated for fraud, which resulted in notional savings of over £100,000. So notional savings represent the difference between the amount which could have been paid to settle the claim and the actual costs incurred in the investigation. In July 2019, with support from Waitman solicitors, the council was successful in securing a finding of fundamental dishonesty against a claimant who alleged injuries resulting from a tripping accident. The claimant discontinued his claim after the council defended it, but the court allowed the council to proceed with its application for a finding of fundamental dishonesty. The court found in the council's favour and also removed the claimant's cost protection and ordered him to pay costs of £10,000 to the council. Since then, 2 further findings of fundamental dishonesty have been secured against highway tripping claimants, together with findings of conspiracy against one of the claimants who supplied photographs to facilitate the claims. Those judgments, which were handed down in February this year, will allow the council to pursue costs from the claimants and the photographer. This action has been delayed by COVID, but will be pursued as soon as it's feasible to do it. So, you know, the council will not accept people making fraudulent claims, and that's a cautionary tale. So I will move then to paragraph 11 for the recommendation. I move that recommendation and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Mitchell. Moving on to colleagues then in alphabetical order. Councillor Guthrie?
Not this time.
Councillor Higgins?
No, thank you.
Councillor Knowles?
No, not from me, thank you.
Councillor Mitchell? Oh no, Councillor McLaughlin, sorry.
No, thank you.
Councillor Mundry?
No questions.
Councillor Patel?
No questions from me, thank you.
Councillor Smith?
Me neither, thank you.
Okay then, thank you colleagues. Do we have a seconder for this report?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been seconded by Councillor Guthrie, in which case we move to the vote. Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie?
4.
Councillor Higgins?
4.
Councillor Knowles?
4.
Councillor McLaughlin?
4.
Councillor Mitchell?
4.
Councillor Mundry?
4.
Councillor Patel?
4.
And Councillor Smith?
4.
Thank you, that's unanimous support for that report. Moving on then to agenda item 8, and it's Councillor Mitchell again. I think we probably need to break up this agenda next time. This report is COVID-19. It's an update on procurement activity in line with coronavirus arrangements. So Councillor Mitchell, please.
Thank you, Chair. I can probably be very, very brief with this report. Basically, because of COVID, the government relaxed the rules that the council normally has to fulfil when it's procuring contracts or extending contracts or making contracts. But for the sake of transparency, even though the rules have been relaxed, we use each cabinet meeting as an opportunity to say what's happened in the previous month under those regulations. There is nothing to report this month, so I'll end it there. The recommendation is at paragraph 11, and I'll move that recommendation, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Nice brief presentation. I'm sure we'll have a brief session of questions from members. So I'll start with Councillor Guthrie.
Just to comment, we just need to thank everybody that's been involved with all the COVID issues, not just our senior staff, but all the other staff that have been involved in it. I think they really deserve our praise and thanks. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think it's a really good point, and absolutely right to congratulate staff throughout the organisation and our partners for the work that they've done. Councillor Higgins?
No, thank you.
Councillor Knowles?
No thanks.
Councillor McLaughlin?
No, thank you.
Councillor Mundry?
No questions.
Councillor Patel?
No questions from me, thank you.
And Councillor Smith?
No, thank you.
Okay, in which case have I got a seconder for this report?
Happy to second.
Okay, that's Councillor Knowles, thank you. I don't have any questions, so if we move to the vote then, Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie?
4.
Councillor Higgins?
4.
Councillor Knowles?
4.
Councillor McLaughlin?
4.
Councillor Mitchell?
4.
Councillor Mundry?
4.
Councillor Patel?
4.
And Councillor Smith?
4.
Okay, thank you, that's unanimous. I thought it'd be a good point to give Councillor Mitchell a break. So agenda item 9 is going to be presented by myself. This is a report on the council's final corporate strategy for the period 2020 to 2024. And obviously we've talked a lot about COVID, but we've continued our work on the corporate strategy, and colleagues will remember that the previous corporate strategy was due to run out in 2020. As a result of the LGA peer review that we had last year, then a key action from that was about refreshing our corporate strategy, and we did some work at the back end of last year in partnership with colleagues from the LGA, doing workshop sessions as a cabinet, but also joint sessions with the senior leadership team, and the senior leadership team having their own sessions as well. And really, the point for me was about asking that question of fundamentally, what's this council about? And I think, you know, we sometimes get on with the day job, and we're not so good sometimes at lifting up our heads and talking about the vision and what the mission of the council really is. And I really enjoyed the sessions that we had developing our corporate strategy. I think they signalled, a slight shift for us as an administration. We've had a great deal of success on the commercial and financial agenda, as a way of generating income and addressing the worst impacts of austerity. But as I detected a shift more towards some of the softer people-based aspects of what we do as a council. I think that's really important to recognise that was a priority for us going forward. But fundamentally, I guess that the question is what the council is here for, and no matter what it is, whether we're talking about delivery of frontline services or whether we're talking about the investments and some of the policy direction that we take the council, ultimately our job is to do the absolute best for the people of Warrington, and that covers the whole gamut of services that are delivered here in the town. What people expect is to have a safe place to live, where they can access a quality home, where they can raise a family in the knowledge that their children are going to receive a good level of education, and that their family are going to be looked after both through the health service, but obviously as they progress through into their senior years, and that regardless of circumstances, people access good quality services that they deserve and require at the time that they need them. And I thought that was a really key point to be bringing out. I think the strategy document is quite an ambitious one. It's meatier, I think, than previous strategies we've had, and that report is attached at the appendix. And I think in some ways it goes beyond what would be a classic strategy document. It actually clearly sets out some of our goals and targets, but it also assigns responsibility. And I think us as a strong cabinet team recognise the roles that we each play and offer mutual support. And whilst there's a lead member on there, it's the job of all of us really to help deliver that corporate strategy. I'm hoping obviously that council will endorse this as a strategy, and that the people of Warrington will recognise what it is that this council's about and the direction that we're going to travel in the coming years. I think that's probably all I really want to say in relation to this. I did mention at the start we had a slight tweak to the recommendation of the report, because obviously the corporate strategy is it's a matter for council to adopt, and so there's a slight change to the second recommendation in 11.1, which is that Cabinet supports the corporate strategy and refers it to the next council meeting for approval. So I'll move that recommendation and obviously invite questions from colleagues. So we'll start with Councillor Guthrie.
Your comments for this time.
Councillor Higgins.
No comments, thank you.
Councillor Knowles.
I just really wanted to say something about how values-based it is, because I think that's really, really important. And looking back to the previous item where we looked at risk, the risk of not doing things or the risk of not upholding those values is something that adversely impacts on people's quality of life. So having this set out so positively and having undertaken that detailed piece of work that we were all able to participate in to develop it, I really welcome it, and I think they're values that are hard to disagree with, but the devil's in the detail. So I think the responsibility, having that sort of level of accountability next to all the various parts of it, is challenging, but it also means that we're taking it seriously, and that's something I think that the public need to know. They need to know that these aren't just words, but that there are actions against them, and that the work goes on in all the various parts of the council to make sure that this happens.
Thank you, that was an excellent contribution, and made me wish I'd said it myself during the presentation, so thank you for that, Councillor Knowles. Councillor McLaughlin?
Nothing to add to that, thank you.
Councillor Mitchell?
No, thank you.
Councillor Mundry?
Nothing to add. Councillor
Patel?
Nothing to add.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment if I can. It won't have escaped colleagues' notice there's a very large number of objectives contained in this strategy that relate to children's services. While we regularly mention that our children's services are judged good by Ofsted, we've also never hidden our intention of being judged outstanding in the future. So what you're seeing here isn't just a case of us thinking there's a lot to do in children's services. It's more a recognition of the actions that we can take to see us continue down that journey beyond good and on to outstanding. In children's services, there's the time where you think we're good enough is the time where everything will unravel, and that has happened in other local authorities. It's absolutely right that we always consider how we can improve, and that's one aspect of our approach to children's services here in Warrington. So I really welcome this strategy document and the positive impact that it's going to have on the lives of all young people, and especially the more vulnerable in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, and another excellent contribution. And I think we've recognised the importance of service delivery in the children's area, and we've seen some excellent progress under your leadership, Councillor Smith. So thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. Just when times are tough with austerity doesn't mean that we lose our ambition and vision for what we can achieve as a town on behalf of our residents, and striving to deliver the best outcomes that we possibly can with the resources we've got is absolutely fundamental, not just in children's services but across the whole of the council. So thank you for that input. Okay, I've moved the recommendation. Do I have a seconder for that report?
I'm happy to second.
Okay, I think Councillor Knowles jumped in there first, so we move to the vote then. Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie,
4.
Councillor Higgins,
4.
Councillor Knowles,
4.
Councillor McLaughlin,
4.
Councillor Mitchell,
4.
Councillor Mundry,
4.
Councillor Patel,
4.
and Councillor Smith.
4.
Thank you, that's unanimous. Okay, the next agenda item is item 10, performance report for Q1 of 2020/21. Councillor Patel, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is for our activities April 2020 through to the end of June, and we're now well into September, coming to the end of Q2, but it does take a bit of time for us to collect the data and put it through the normal internal process when we do a report like this for the public. As you can imagine, most of our activities during Q1 were all dominated by COVID and trying to protect our residents and also trying to protect our local economy. That being said, there was still a lot of work that was being done behind the scenes to fulfill our corporate priorities, which was to make residents' lives healthy, happy and independent, making sure everyone benefits from a thriving economy, ensure our communities are safe and strong and that our most vulnerable are protected, and to ensure our town is clean, green and vibrant. Some of the things I'd like to pick up, and the report is available on the council website for everyone to read, for the public to read as well, but some of the things I'd like to pick out on. COVID has shown that it's really important for people to lead healthy lifestyles, and obviously use of the car and the pollution that brings around is something that we're going to have to try and do something to reduce in the future. And on page 143 of the report, it does talk about the council's first and last mile project, and work is progressing on that agenda to try and improve and increase facilities for people who are walking, and also public transport and also cycling into and out of our town centre. And a number of key strategic cycle routes are now either on site or in the final stage of design and are out for tender. So, for example, there's a route from Omega to Burton Wood, and then there's also schemes around Chester Road, from the Gainsborough Road to Bridge Street, and also on the Trans-Pennine Trail. Councillor Matt Smith talked before about our agenda around children and young people, and children are defined as having reached a good level of development at the end of early years foundation stage if they've achieved at least the expected level in the early learning goals in the prime areas of learning, physical development, and that includes communication and language. Now, nationally, the average is 71.8% of children reach GLD. But here in Warrington, I'm really pretty pleased and proud that the team, our average is 73.6. So despite the pressures that we have on our public purse, on our budgets and things, we are still able to give children at the early years stage, a good start to their academic lives. Talked about COVID having an impact on our economy before, and it's fair to say that whilst we were in lockdown, ability to draw in inward investment was stifled as companies were unable to view buildings and the like. But since restrictions have been lifted, some new exciting projects have emerged, including a 1,000 person food distribution opportunity for Amiga. So Amiga is a really important economic development site for the town, and it is creating jobs even during these difficult times. We know just how important, I think in one of the previous reports we talked about fly tipping and having clean streets and the like. And the highways team during Q1 must have got through a lot of shoe leather. They've walked over 1,000 kilometres of highways, inspecting the roads and the like, so far they've cleaned or had cleaned over 5,000 gullies and fixed 350 street lamps. And these are things that are they are things that are really, really important to the public, because we all want everyone to take pride in the place where they live, and especially in the town as a whole. A couple of things I'd like to also pull out around homelessness. So in Q1, we had 1,377 nights in a bed and breakfast. This was significantly higher than previous quarters, and that is purely down to us housing homeless people in the local travel lodge and the like. I think it's really important that the government steps up. Homeless people should be supported regardless whether there is a national pandemic or not. And we have done a lot in the council to provide provision for people so that they don't have to stay on the streets, but really the government needs to step up and have a national policy, and it shouldn't be down to a postcode lottery whether there's support there for homeless people or not. I think the last thing I'd like to really pull out, which I suppose is something that's causing a number of members of the public some concern, is that the increase in domestic violence and domestic abuse, and that has seen a steady increase over the last few quarters, and Q1 was no different. That increased to 15. Let me just get it right. 50. So the number of people, there were 477 crimes involving a victim. 58% of those had said that they'd been a victim again in the last 12 months. Now that's a really, really worrying trend, and we know from national reports and from reports from charities like Women's Aid and the like that there is real concern around domestic abuse and gender violence that's going on in people's homes, especially during lockdown times. So we need to make sure that we are supporting all families as best as we can, but we also need to put the message back to government to say, again, this is supposed to be part of a national policy. Supporting victims of domestic violence abuse should not be down to a postcode lottery. Thank you, Chair. And I'll just move the recommendation that's listed at the end of the report.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Patel. Come through colleagues then for questions. Councillor Guthrie?
No comments from me.
Councillor Higgins?
No comments from me, thank you.
Councillor Knowles?
No comments from me, thanks.
Councillor McLaughlin?
No, thank you.
Councillor Mitchell?
No, thank you.
Councillor Mundry?
No comments.
Councillor Patel?
No comments.
Councillor Smith? Oh yeah, sorry.
No comments, thank you.
That's the problem when you're just following a list in your head, isn't it? So yeah, thank you. I'm glad you didn't have any comments on your own report, Councillor Patel. These are consistently, excellent reports, Councillor Patel, and I think they're really important for us to recognise, how we're performing as a council, particularly against our pledges, priorities, and objectives that we've set. And sometimes the results don't make for good reading. I think you've picked out some really important points there, particularly increase in domestic abuse, for example, and. It's not about us being critical of what we're doing, but what it should do is focus our attention on those aspects and ensure that we continue to provide the right level of resources in order to address the problems that are indicated by those kind of statistics and numbers. But there's a lot of really good progress in there as well, and I particularly welcomed for example, you picking out things like highways repairs, gully cleaning, etc. Because quite often those are the kind of things which are very visible to some of our residents, and they're part of the fundamental day job as well. So it's good to see colleagues continue to make progress there across the council. Have we got a seconder for this report?
Happy to second it.
Okay, Councillor Mitchell has seconded it then. If we can move to the vote, Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie.
4.
Councillor Higgins.
4.
Councillor Knowles.
4.
Councillor McLaughlin.
4.
Councillor Mitchell.
4.
Councillor Mundry.
4.
Councillor Patel.
4.
And Councillor Smith.
4.
Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. Moving on to our final item then on the Part 1 agenda, agenda item 11, Omega Local Highways Phase 2B, Construction Contract Award. Councillor Mundry, please.
Yes, thank you, Russ. I'm just going to give you a couple of highlights for this report. I think, as you said, it's the project centres around enlargement of an existing travel signal controls junction. Some of the aims are to reduce traffic congestion, develop an efficient transport network to support the town's growth agenda, provide people the choice about how they travel and how they make their journeys. And I think I can't emphasise that enough. I think Councillor Patel raised about in his report. We have got an active travel campaign. We are pushing for more people to have a choice of how they travel, and we're ensuring that we put as much infrastructure we can to say increase the cycle lanes, increase walking, so increase the active travel thing. And this is a part. This also fits into that. And our local transport plan 4, again, it fits into that quite clearly into that as well, because we're encouraging people to choose a different way of travelling if possible. It also encourages a lifestyle increase in day-to-day activity and improve the safety for all highways users. It also has a growth impact on our economic growth, and that's obviously attracted the Cheshire and Warrington LEP funding, which I'm going to come into. Some of the good news for Warrington on this scheme is that it was originally agreed in 2018. It's £2.35 million, which is still the same cost of it. But notice the difference is on the page 171 from table 4, when the council's paying just over £1 million towards the scheme, to now table 5, where we're now getting DFT funding of 1.27 million, local LEP fund of just under £1 million, and the whole scheme of £2.3 million is costing the council and the residents £95,000. So it's a lot reduced funding for council's contribution towards this scheme. It's a much needed scheme that's going to increase for improved congestion, but also it demonstrates quite clearly how successful Warrington's been in highway schemes in attracting funding. And I think I've been doing a study on this, looking into Warrington's history of highway schemes. I think we're in an unprecedented period the last few years of how successful Warrington's been in major highway schemes and delivering them on time, on budget, and the amount of schemes we managed to finish is over £100 million worth of schemes that's been delivered in Warrington over the past few years. It's unprecedented times for Warrington. Bear in mind, at a time when the government's cutting our funding left, right and centre, we're managing to succeed and improve the area. So this, with that comment, I think it puts in light that this scheme is a good scheme for Warrington, and it's a very little cost for Warrington taxpayers.
Thank you for that, Councillor Mundry. Excellent presentation. Are you proposing the recommendations in section 11?
All the recommendations are set out in the paper, Chair.
Yeah, okay, thank you. We'll come to members then for any comments or questions. Councillor Guthrie?
No comments, thank you.
Councillor Higgins?
No comment, thank you.
Councillor Knowles?
No comments.
Good level of suspense there. Councillor McLaughlin?
No comment, thank you.
Councillor Mitchell?
No, thank you.
Councillor Patel?
No, thank you.
Councillor Smith?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. I think just to emphasise a couple of the points that you made, Councillor Mundry, I think you're right. It is a long history now, addressing some of the inadequacies of transport infrastructure in the town, a lot associated with new town development going back many years, and looking to the Warrington East schemes, what we're doing now, with the Centre Park link, and obviously the work around Omega have been, a great success story. And congratulations to you and to all the officers involved, really, in terms of bringing these schemes forward. And I think you're right. Warrington's got a tremendous reputation for developing schemes and delivering schemes, and that's why Department for Transport and other partners such as the Cheshire and Warrington LEP are willing to put funding forward, because they know it's going to get spent in Warrington. It's going to deliver good schemes that obviously offer good return for the town, whether that's in terms of cost benefit ratios, or whether that's in terms of freeing up traffic, or as we often see, offering people alternatives in terms of modes of transport. And I think this is a great outcome, that we end up delivering a really important scheme, having put forward around 5% of the money. That's a great success, so well done to you for that. In which case, have we got a seconder for this report?
I'll second the report.
Okay, was that Councillor McLaughlin? I don't know who that was.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Councillor McLaughlin is seconded then. So if we move to the vote, Councillor Bowden, 4. Councillor Guthrie,
4.
Councillor Higgins,
4.
Councillor Knowles,
4.
Councillor McLaughlin,
4.
Councillor Mitchell,
4.
Councillor Mundry.
I'm for my own report, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Patel.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. That's also unanimous. And that brings us to the end of our part 1 business for tonight's Cabinet meeting. So that will bring an end to our public broadcast. And thank you to people of Warrington that have lasted the pace and managed to get to this point. So thank you for your attention tonight, and I hope you found it interesting. Good night.